This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
I think in the end, I thought we defended pretty well. When adversity hit, we responded. The power play scored, penalty kill was great. So all the little areas there where there could have been, chink in the armor, the boys, they stood strong, and sitting here with another win, and so that's a really, really good team. I see why they have the record they have, and I think we've probably caught them at a decent time, and and obviously, unfortunately, they've lost some really important players on their team, and at times you have to take advantage of that. And but they're deep, they're fast, they've checked boxes all over the place. They're a hell of a team.
It's always easier to talk about the opposing team after a win, isn't it? Erik Erlendsson from lightninginsider.com. Very rarely when you lose do you sit there and gloat about the other team. It's usually, well, we didn't do this. We beat ourselves. Yeah, when you win, you can, hey, look, I think Colorado's the best team in the league. I can see why everybody loves them. We beat them, but they're really good. You're never going to hear that when you lose, right?
Well, especially that game. Especially that game last night, right? We talked so much about it on the show yesterday and during the broadcast last night about, the importance of a January game. That was game number 42 for both teams, starting the official second half of their schedule, and, the run that the Avalanche had been on. But, it does tend to come out a little bit more after you've defeated said team than it does when said team has defeated you. But, it's good stuff. It was a very entertaining game last night. A lot of fun. Obviously, the Lightning still without McDonough and Hedman, Avalanche without Taves and Landeskog, but a lot of fun. And it's a shame, as of now, that these two teams are not scheduled to play again this year.
Well, we don't know. We don't know. It may scheduled, but we could get a little closer, and who knows? It is Power Lunch. Formally introducing the show once again. Erik Erlendsson, our good friend, in for Mish. Mish will be back tomorrow at Bolts Radio. If you want to get involved in the conversation, you can. We will take your questions. There's a lot to dive into when it comes to this game that we saw last night. But I think, we played the soundbite from Brandon Hagel, I think in the pregame, and he talked about, there are some games that going in, oh, man, how am I going to get up for this game? And he's honest about it, and I think you like to hear that honesty. And then he said, look, there are games where you no doubt you want to circle this one on the calendar. And I think everybody around the league, everybody who covered this team, anybody who was a casual fan probably looked at this and said, all right, that caught my attention. Tampa Bay and Colorado, everybody's missing everybody, and you still have to go out there and play. What I thought was interesting, early on, is that at the end of one, the Lightning have a 1-0 lead, courtesy of a Jake Guentzel power play goal. And we can talk about maybe how that goal came about. I think there were a lot of key components to Guentzel being able to score. But, we talked about the face-off percentage and what it was, and it was ugly last night. I mean, it was a little, over 30% maybe the Lightning had in face-off wins. But they lost their first 11, right? I mean, I mean, you're watching that and you're thinking, all right, Colorado's dominating the face-off circle. They haven't won a face-off through the first 11 or 12. How's this going to turn out? And I know there's this stat out there where when the Lightning are under 40%, I don't know if they're undefeated. Yeah, they're undefeated. Okay, so that's pretty incredible, obviously.
Including last night.
And look, that is something that can't happen in the playoffs. We talked about the playoffs are a different animal. That needs to change. Maybe in the regular season, it's a little bit different. That stood out. And the fact that the Lightning were able to withstand that type of issue and to be able to come out 1-0, and then, of all things, on the power play. So, two things that have been the bugaboo all year, the face-offs and the power play, both popped up. One didn't hurt them at all, and the other one helped them.
Yeah,
which was interesting.
The irony is that on the power play goal, I think Braden Point won 3 straight.
You're right.
Like they
You're
kept
right.
the puck in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's a big reason why. So it is crazy. It is a concern overall with the faceoffs. I mean, you look at the 6-on-5 situations last night for Colorado. I think they won every faceoff. Right.
Yeah.
Those are, like, we talk about situational faceoffs, right? And the percentages can be percentages. If you lose a center ice faceoff or a neutral zone faceoff, it doesn't feel as potentially damaging to your team. But you start losing those 6-on-5s, you start losing those PK draws. Like those are the ones that hurt you, that can hurt you, right? Certainly recency bias comes into play because, we lost that draw and it led directly to a goal. But that's true. Like, that's what it can lead to, especially I was getting worried on those 6-on-5s. Like I think Cirelli lost all of them. And Colorado was so dangerous, and Makar, the way that he can shoot the puck from the point, and you just flirt with it all the time. So those are the areas of concern that I would have with the faceoff, is especially in defense. So the power play is the power play. It can kill momentum for sure, but it's the ones in the D zone. Those are the ones that can kind of get back to you. But as you mentioned, it didn't hurt them again last night, as they were under 40%. They won the game, and the power play came through with what ultimately, they got the power play goal and Colorado didn't. And, they get the empty netter, but it's a 1-goal game.
It's a good point. And, specifically to that power play, there was a lot of talk that the reason why Guentzel had the room that he did below the goal line and to walk out the way he did was because Radish was having that shoot first mentality from the point. And, Kucherov was doing his thing. And while I don't disagree with that, if you also recall, they were also trying to get Braden Point in the slot. And I think they tried 2 or 3 times there too. I don't know if his shots were blocked. One didn't connect. Maybe he did get one shot off and it was saved, and the Lightning were able to keep the puck in. But that also, I think, helped allow Jake Guentzel to walk along that line because there was nobody around him. And so we talk about various ways the power play can improve. Radish, shoot first mentality, get that shot through, be a threat. Braden Point, getting free and allowing Kucherov an opportunity to hit him in that area. But then also, too, Jake Guentzel to be more of a playmaker along the goal line. You don't have to necessarily force an Oliver Bjorkstrand on the opposite side to be a one-time threat if you have some other guys who are doing some things differently that might be just as effective. So I thought everybody contributed to that, but I did think not only Radish's ability to shoot was a big deal, but they were looking for Point kind of in that bumper spot. And I think both of those allowed Jake Guentzel the opportunity to have a really good scoring opportunity.
And the other part of that is that with Point in that spot, Guentzel can feed him too. Right. So if that D drifts down to him, then he has that opportunity, because that opens up maybe a little bit more space for Braden Point to try and get that shot off from that spot on the ice. So there's no doubt that Colorado watched tape of the San Jose game when they scored the 3 power play goals, because they were making sure they were trying to prevent Radish from getting off a clean shot. They were trying to keep Point in check, all while trying to keep an eye on Nikita Kucherov. Oh, by the way, you've got a 40-goal scorer down in the corner with a puck on a stick, right? And you don't go to him, and you give him the space, and he's like, okay, I'll take it, I'll score, right? Like, he had all kinds of time to walk to that area of the ice with nobody on him, and find that area on the far side, right? And kind of lift it up and get it up into that area. So hopefully, we talked about after the San Jose game, but hopefully, these past few games, I think they're 6 for their past 12 on the power play. So hopefully that kind of, gets them feeling better about the power play, because like on that one in particular, like everybody was involved, right? I know Radish and Kucherov get the assists, but everybody was involved in that play and the entire sequence, going back to the faceoff wins and everything else from Point. I mean, everybody was a part of that. And if you can get this power play going, it's just going to open up more things for this team moving forward.
100% agree. At Bolts Radio, if you want to get involved in the conversation. In the second period, the Lightning got down 2-1, and then at 17:22, I mean, I don't even think we call them the fourth line anymore. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. let's call it the Yanni Gourde line, once again strikes. And look, people are going to talk about the goal, and I think that's valid. Gergensen's picking up the offensive slack compared to where he was last year, and you can say law of averages, he was due to have a correction, and that's great. But the job that line did, defending the McKinnon line. I mean, you saw Nathan McKinnon at the end of the game very frustrated. I think a lot of that is attributed to what that line was able to accomplish defensively. That line had a whale of a game for Tampa Bay.
Nathan McKinnon did not have a shot on goal 5-on-5. And it was about 50 minutes of 5-on-5 play. So a good portion of the game was played 5-on-5. Now he had some looks 6-on-5, even strength, but a pure 5-on-5, one shot attempt. Right now, Marty Nate just had a few, right? So, but I mean, you hold Nathan McKinnon, let alone hold Nathan McKinnon off the score sheet. Like, you didn't even give him a shot on goal. Like, and he almost broke loose one time. I remember a play, I think in the third period, he kind of split the D a little bit and came in close. But it's not an easy assignment. It's not. And for those guys to spend as much time in the offensive zone as they did, making that line work defensively, and obviously it led to the goal. That was a really good shift that led up to the goal, and they had a couple of other shifts like that as well. While you're matched up against one of the greatest players in the game, it's a difficult task, because we talked about it. Like, how do you defend him? Watch your gaps, play him physical. Everything that you have to try and do to slow down a guy like Nathan McKinnon, because he is a unique player in the fact that the size and the speed that he brings. He's such a force out there in everything that he does, and trying to slow him down. Not many teams have done it. I'm going off my very shady memory here, but I think I looked it up last night. I think McKinnon's only been held off the score sheet 7 times through 41 games. So last night they held him off the score sheet, and I should have checked the shots. There's probably not many games where he's been held without a shot on goal. So it was just yeoman's work put in by Gourde, Gergensen, and Holmberg, and Radish and Moser were the defensive pair out there against him most of the time as well. So, great job by those 5 guys taking on that assignment, not only neutralizing McKinnon, but you outscored him.
That part, I don't think anybody anticipated, just because of how things were rolling for Colorado. But then again, let's face it, every team, regardless of how great your season is going to have maybe some hurdles you have to overcome. Maybe this is it a little bit for Colorado. You start to lose some games, you're dealing with some injuries, and I don't want to say the Lightning got them at a good time, but look, the Lightning are battle tested.
They got them at a good time.
They did. But, the Lightning are battle tested. They've dealt with the injuries more than Colorado has. I mean, collectively. And they probably don't flinch at some of the adversity that they're facing. Whereas I think when you take a look at Colorado, not to say they haven't played a lot of hockey without Landeskog, because they have over the last couple of years, but collectively up and down the lineup might be a little bit different. And there's going to be some adjustment for them, I would think. So.
Yeah, it's always interesting, too. I had a comment from a Colorado fan on one of my feeds. It said, "Hey, congratulations. You caught Colorado's third game in 4 nights on the road without Landeskog and without Taves." Well,
what a sore loser.
The Lightning were coming back from California without Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, and Emil Lilleberg. Every team goes through this. And did they catch him at a good time? I think there's no doubt, right? They're heading back. They actually have a game tomorrow at home, right? So they headed back pretty quickly and have to get ready for a Thursday game. But that's the schedule. Everybody goes through the schedule. It is what it is. And it's not like we're sitting here saying the Lightning dominated Colorado last night. It was a very good, well-paced game between 2 teams with great players on both sides, and the Lightning just happened to find that extra goal.
It is interesting because that's a fan who isn't able to separate the emotion from reality. It's okay that your team lost a game. I mean, the big picture for Colorado, as it is with Tampa Bay, well, and that's fine. But the goal is, and he should know, or she should know, that the goal is to get into the playoffs. And while this game was fun to cover, and I'm sure the Lightning can take things from it, it is collectively going to be 1 out of 82.
Yep.
Okay? You showed that your fourth line or the Yanni Gourde line, I think, can skate with a lot of high-end scoring lines in the National Hockey League, which I think will have a domino effect of not having Anthony Cirelli be the person that does that in his line all the time. But it is just one game. So, good measuring stick for both. I actually think the Lightning, out of all of the teams in the NHL, you'd be hard-pressed to talk about one who has dealt with more significant injuries and has won more than the Lightning, which is why, again, I think that fan probably just needs to take a step back and say it's okay to lose. Lightning are a good team. You didn't lose to, I mean, at this point, there might be just 2 or 3 teams in the NHL who aren't playing well, so you could go to them. But, it's not the end of the world. Colorado is going to win a lot more games. They're going to get to the playoffs. Just, take a deep breath. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay. We don't need to get worked up.
I don't think Colorado's in danger of missing out on the playoffs.
No. No, it's
it's still ridiculous to sit here and think that was their 4th regulation loss of the season in game number 42. Like, that's just incredible.
I actually think in the parity-driven league we are playing in right now, I don't know where that stat will go down, but I think that is one of the more remarkable stats.
Yeah.
Just because of overtime and parity and everything.
But you look at both conferences, it is very interesting because the last place team in the Eastern Conference would be right there on the playoff line in the West. So there's a massive jump from the top 6 teams in the West to the bottom 8. Like, it's crazy how much of a gap there is. And you look at the Eastern Conference. So, like, you do wonder sometimes these top heavy teams, the Minnesotas, the Dallases, the Colorados, Edmonton, are they taking advantage of a weaker conference? I mean, Winnipeg, who won the President's Trophy last year, has lost 9 in a row. Right? They're actually the bottom team in the conference. So are they just taking advantage of a weaker conference? Either way, it's still a very, very nice stat for Colorado to be where they're at. They really have been a wagon this year.
It was a fun game. It was a fun game to watch, and I think everybody should be excited about the outcome, knowing that big picture, you have to move on, and probably just gives you a little bit more confidence. I will tell you this: the goal that Hagel scored, there was a lot of cool moments on that goal. I thought an underrated part of that goal was the Stu and his ability to really toe the blue line. Everybody's going to talk about the back and forth, Kucherov and then Crozier being able to find a soft spot, receiving the pass, and then getting it quickly over to Hagel. All very, very fair. But Stu was put in a couple of positions where it was maybe less than 50-50 he was going to be able to hold that puck in, and it was going to be on sides. And we've talked about his play with the puck and him, I think, having another gear offensively to get to as well. I just thought that really stood out in his poise with the puck to make a play and keep it in was pretty impressive. Didn't get an assist, but really did a nice job of keeping that puck in and then allowing Kucherov to do what he does.
He'll get that third assist when the tape goes back and they show it in the locker room, right?
That's right.
I mean, we continue to be impressed with Charlie Wardestu on a nightly basis for a guy who couldn't even find an NHL contract through the first 6 years of his pro career.
Hard to believe.
And you watch him now.
Right.
Mature, much more mature player for sure. His game is more mature than, not that I saw him play, 5-6 years ago, but you can see the pro experience with the poise, because you can't be taught poise, but you can learn poise. And he's got a lot of it. He doesn't panic. And it's on plays like that. You see it. It's plays getting out of the, his own zone. He doesn't panic, right? Again, not trying to make comparisons, but remember Anton Stralman, when Stralman was here, he was patience personified, right? He was so calm under pressure, and you have to have guys like that, and Dastu's been that. And for the role that he has found here, right? And he's playing top 4 minutes, and now he's paired with Erik Chernak, since Erik Chernak has come back now for the past 4 games. He's keeping the top 4 minutes, and it's a testament to him coming in and continuing to work. He earned the extra year in the contract that he signed just a little bit ago. It's a cool story. We continue to watch it evolve, and it's. I was talking about this with my son when I got home last night. They have a very crowded blue line all of a sudden when and if everybody's healthy. Like, it's a very crowded blue line, and I don't know, nobody's going to deserve to come out. But a couple of guys are going to have to come out once everybody's healthy. So until that time happens, we'll continue to appreciate what a guy like Dastu has brought to the lineup, and that play and dance on the line last night kind of just shows you what he's capable of doing, because he has experience and he has patience, and he doesn't panic. He doesn't.
And it was pretty incredible to see. And then look in the open net, Radish made a good play to get the puck out.
Yep.
Had to go to his backhand, but it was an efficient play. I mean, it is the question for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who is staying in the lineup?
Yeah.
I can think of one guy who probably gets sent down. I think we talked about this yesterday, Carlisle. I think, out of all of them, he's acquitted himself well. I just think maybe not as well as the other ones. So I think he goes down. I mean, you could probably make the case Crozier, but who has to clear waivers? Who doesn't? Is this going to factor in? Right? And then, are you making that decision that, of course, Hedman and McDonough are coming back and they're going to play, but, what are you doing with Lilleberg?
Yeah.
So that's why when you talk about trades, it makes some sense. Not you're trading every one of the guys who aren't going to be in the lineup on a regular basis. We understand that, but you don't want to risk. How many of these guys would be risked on waivers that somebody would claim them?
Well, first of all, I believe Dastu's the only guy who doesn't require waivers, and I don't know. There's always a number of games trigger that comes in with players on his on his 1-year contract coming from Europe.
Yeah.
But everybody else is claimed. Look, you'd say Carlisle, right? He's cleared waivers a couple of times, but there's a lot of tape on him now.
Yep.
Right? Pretty good,
Sure.
Young left shot D. He's a guy who could be a Group 6 free agent at the end of the year, unrestricted free agent, if he doesn't hit the games played threshold. And I don't know what that number is off the top of my head, but I don't know how close he is to it at the moment. I would say you're at risk of all of them.
Yeah, right.
Right, because Carlisle would be the one guy you'd think, but he's played very well. I think he had a tough game, I think, in LA. But other than that, you can't sit here and say that he's done anything to hurt his cause.
No.
Moving forward. So I would say that every one of those defensemen that you would consider are at risk of being claimed off waivers. And the one guy who might not be subject to waivers, you're not taking him out of the lineup, and B, you're not sending him down. That's Dastu.
I'm curious. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch how that's all going to unfold at Bolts Radio. If our audience wants to weigh in, they certainly can. Anything else you want to hit on regarding that game before we get to some questions? Got chippy at the end there. We saw, Nick Paul was in the middle of some things, and I think that was a lot of frustration for McKinnon. The goaltending, I thought Vasi, when he needed to be, made some really good saves when Colorado was pushing there in the third, for sure. I think there was a lot of attention thrown to Colorado's camp because of the goaltending they've received this year. Yeah. I think Vasilevsky showed a lot of people again last night why he's really playing at a pretty high level.
Yeah, he should be in the Vezina conversation with the way he's played.
Yes.
Although you look at Ilya Sorokin again last night, 44 stops, but yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, Vazzy's been the backbone of he's been the guy that's carried the heavy load, the heavy burden. He's played a lot of high level hockey, a lot of high pressure hockey. And he's always going to be the guy you look to. If the team is having success, most likely Vasilevsky's having success. And I think you can say that about a lot of teams with their goaltender. I mean, look how people are reacting to Shesterkin and the injury he sustained for the Rangers. And, what are they going to do with Jonathan Quick as their number 2 guy if he's going to miss the rest of the season? Now, they haven't said that, but they did place him on LTI, so he's missing at least 10 games. Vazzy's just kind of quietly, kind of like his friend Nikita Kucherov, just kind of quietly goes about the business and continues to put up the numbers and make the saves when he has to. And, we've talked about it. The goaltending in this team has been rock solid the entire year. And it's a big reason why, they've had the success they had. It's because you've had the goalie to sit there and bail you out when you do make mistakes, because every team is going to make mistakes. And Vazzy's, again, I think he should be in the Vezina conversation, and I'm not sure he is right now.
And John Cooper should be coach of the year.
Without a doubt. It was interesting. I don't know if you caught this. So NHL.com will put out, what their writers vote on for the awards, and they do this periodically. And they did it, I think 2 days ago. And I think John Cooper was like 6th or 5th in the voting. But Greg Wyshynski from ESPN.com polls PHWA members and gets their votes on all of them. And John Cooper was at the top of the Jack Adams list from the voters. Now, neither of those factions are the actual voters for the Jack Adams. It is the broadcasters that do this. But it was interesting. Even Greg said, I don't think he said he's never seen the disparity between what he polls and what NHL.com polls. Now, smaller voting pool or smaller sample of voters. I think NHL.com only has 12 that they poll. Well, I think Greg kind of casts a pretty wider net, but it's because we think all the time about, I completely lost my train of thought. I'm going to give it to you.
Why, I'm curious why coaches don't vote on the coach of the year. Broadcasters, okay, fine. We've clearly missed the boat on that one for John Cooper, if you're a broadcaster. So, with all due respect to broadcasters, we have a lot of them on our show. We work with many of them, very knowledgeable. We're swinging and missing on coach of the year.
Yeah. Well, that was the train of thought I was trying to get to. Thank you for bringing it back into my mind.
Yes.
It's become an award of who did the best with least expectations.
100%.
And it's kind of like the Masterton Award. The Masterton Award, right? Every team has a nominee and it's voted on exclusively by the PHWA. It's all of a sudden kind of become the Comeback Player of the Year award. And that's not what the award is supposed to be. Just like the Jack Adams is not supposed to be for best coach based on expectations. Because if you look, how many of the people, the guys who have won that award in the past 6-7 years haven't had a job 2 years later or were out of the job that they won that award with?
Sure.
Right? Because sometimes it's a fluke. Sometimes it's a 1-year springboard, right? You get that bounce from having a new coach come in and then reality sets back in. I mean, Guy Boucher. I think about Guy Boucher. He came in that first year with Tampa Bay, surprised everybody, got that team to the Eastern Conference Finals where there were no expectations whatsoever. He didn't win it that year. But the next year they were sub 500, and then a year later he was out, right? So I don't know why that award has become that criteria, because you look at what John Cooper is doing this year with all last year, he was in the same situation. He took one of the worst 5-on-5 teams 2 years ago to one of the best 5-on-5 teams last year and didn't get credit for turning that around, right? Because everybody expected, they're the Lightning. Of course they're going to make the playoffs. Even with the absence of Steven Stamkos and the trade of Mikhail Sergachev, right? You traded 2 big pieces from your Stanley Cup years, and it didn't even come in as a registering as well. Of course, it's the Lightning. And I think there's some of that kind of going on this year, but that's where you have to, if you're a voter, step back, analyze it better, right? Because Jared Bednar, I think, was at the top of the NHL.com, right? Because of the year that Colorado's having. Well, everybody expects Colorado to be good, but not this good. right? Just like when Jim Montgomery won it the year the Bruins won, because they had a historical year. And John Cooper didn't win it the year they had a historical year, right? He finished second behind Barry Trotz. So it's unfortunate that it's viewed at as that way, but there's no doubt. I know, we closely watch the team here, but there's no doubt that of all the years that he's been behind the bench here, and we're now at 1,002, 1,003 games. This is the year he has to be at the top of everybody's list because of everything this team has gone through this year.
It's it's almost like, hey, it's my bad. It's my bad. Like, we picked this team at the beginning because we thought they weren't going to be good, and they've surprised a lot of people. So I need to do a mea culpa. They're okay. I'm gonna kind of save face here, and I'm gonna vote for that person to be coach of the year. When in reality, I think, like a lot of awards, Ted Lindsay probably comes to mind, right? That's the one the players vote on, correct?
Yep, players top player.
So, sometimes that means more. My peers,
yeah.
So if the coaches vote and they look at things and they say, you're not trying to tell me that most of the coaches don't know what the Lightning are going through right now and wouldn't say, hey, you know what, Coop's doing a really good job.
Well, that's what you would like to think that the broadcasters do, because they broadcast, for the most part, they're going to broadcast one or two games of opposite conference opponents. So they're actually seeing them. So they get that sort of inside information from their fellow broadcasters.
But clearly they're not.
So you would think, well,
they're clear. Clearly they're not.
Yeah. No. Now, because I voted for years, right, as a member of the PHWA, and they vote on the Hart and the Lady Bing and the Selke and the Norris, some of the major awards, and I've always, I took that as a privilege.
Sure.
And in doing so, I put in my research, right? Yeah. I look at it. Now I know some of the players that jump out of the top of my head as I'm going through what my ballot will look like, but I want to make sure that I'm looking, especially when we're talking about like the Selke Award and those are maybe a little bit harder to kind of define.
That's hard. That one's hard.
But you want to put in your research because you want to make sure it's as accurate as it can be, right? And are you always going to get it right? In my mind, I was always right in what I voted, but I'm sure I kind of missed maybe a player here or there through all the years. But you just like to think that the voters would put in the ample amount of research to see this and figure it out.
I think that's fair. And I think we're all creatures of habit. It's if maybe you don't have enough time and you kind of like look at who's leading the league in scoring or maybe surprise teams, it's easy to piggyback off of what's going on. So I totally get it. I think the coaching, there's some intricacies there involved. There's a little bit of, hey, we're going against Coop in that system that they made some adjustments and there are better 5-on-5. Why is that? Well, it's not just they have better players, but clearly maybe there's something they're seeing when they compete against Coop and they're looking at film. Hey, the Lightning have made some adjustments. They're not pinching as much. Here's why. And, or it could just be, look at all the injuries they've had. And then they can ask themselves that question, man, if I had Makar and Taves out for 40% of the games, would we be where we are? Maybe. But I tell you what, that guy's doing it. It's more impressive than what's happening in Anaheim.
Yeah.
Collectively.
I agree. Yeah.
Would you say? You agree? You could rephrase it if you want.
It's a good point, Greg.
Hey, on cue. Thaw 3/4. Good point, Greg. I didn't make that up. I didn't write that. That was from earlier in the. That was from earlier in the show. Rich says, "Congratulations on the 1,000th game and the big win over Colorado. That was a pretty cool ceremony, and I'm sure you're the same way. I always like on the big screen, the jumbotron, the former players, ex-players that chime in. Wayne Gretzky. How about Scotty Bowman? Scotty Bowman narrating it.
Wow, that was awesome.
How cool was that?
Yeah, Coop even said that. He said it's narrated by freaking Scotty Bowman. Like,
I mean, my
what
goodness.
an honor! What an honor!
Yeah, for sure. And he has seen some hockey, of course, but man.
Well, and the best one though was Eric Nielsen.
Yes.
Right. One of his former players from that Norfolk.
That looked like a little WWE going on there.
Yeah. That was
pretty
interesting.
sweet.
I was like trying to figure out who that was. And then I was like, oh yeah, big part of that Norfolk team in 2012. I mean, it just shows you the impact that he's had on so many people.
You know, Pat Maroon was in for Phil yesterday, and he had talked about, because you know the history between Maroon and Coop goes a long, long way. And he said, you know, when we first started out, he was driving us to rinks. He was doing this. He was doing that. It is, I don't like to be over emotional and hyperbolic with things that we see, because you have to, I think, be a little bit measured. I do think Coop's background and how he got here is movie worthy.
Yeah.
You go from, I mean, you never played the game at the professional level. You were a lawyer. And here you are doing something. Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good story, right?
Yeah. No, it's a Forrest Gump-esque path that he's taken, right?
I mean,
Minus the box of chocolates.
Yeah, because, you know, it is interesting. I mean, you know how things are today with players, the credibility. So, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but if you've never played the game, sometimes people can look at you differently. And I'm sure he had to earn it, no doubt, all his years, whether it's in the minors or other leagues, to try and get to where he is today, and then to stick.
Yeah.
Stick.
Yeah. And for people who aren't familiar with how he got started in coaching hockey, he was practicing law in Michigan, and he was in front of a judge who had heard that he had played some hockey growing up. And he said, hey, my kid's high school team could use some help. Would you be willing to help? Well, he stepped in. They won a state championship, right? Like, it was like immediate kind of stepping in. And, you know, it's like, can you imagine having that conversation with your spouse and say, hey, I'm going to give up law, which can be a pretty lucrative financial, you know, path for your career. I'm going to give this up. We're going to go to Texarkana, and I'm going to coach hockey in Texarkana, right? I'm going to sit there. I'm going to paint my own blue lines because they don't have a staff that's going to make the ice, right? Like, it's, and to sit here and see the path that he's gone from Texarkana, which moved to St. Louis. He goes to Green Bay in the USHL. He wins a championship there. He gets hired in Norfolk. He wins a championship there and gets hired in the NHL. And now he's been here for 12, 13 years. It really is an incredible, you know, book-esque movie style type of story to kind of get him there. And I have the perfect guy to play John Cooper in the movie, and that is Bob Odenkirk. If you look at some pictures of Bob Odenkirk, he kind of looks like John Cooper a little bit.
Bob Odenkirk.
It's from Better Call Saul.
Oh, yeah.
Breaking Bad, yeah.
That would be very good. I think you're onto something there. Who can you speak to?
I have to call Odenkirk's agent and say, hey, can we get you working on this? I just want a small royalty.
That would be sweet. That's a good call by you. FKA says, outstanding performance last night. It's easy to tell they are playing with confidence and swagger now. Any concerns the 3-week Olympic break could throw a wrench in their momentum? What do you think?
I mean, yeah, you always wonder about that. You know, it is a long time away, but as we know, a good portion of those players are going to still play some games, right?
That is
assuming
correct.
Assuming Hedman comes back, and, you know, you've got J.J. Moser was named to Team Switzerland today, and, you know.
Was Stahoviak named?
He was named to Germany's roster. Yeah, that came out today as well. So that's
Good
11 players in the organization.
Yeah,
that will play in the Olympics, and of course John Cooper will be there. Julian Breezeball will be there. Yeah, but sure. But guess what? Every other team's going through the same situation, right? And on other teams will have fewer players participate. You know, I don't think anybody else is having more than 10 of their NHL players, and let's face it, it'd be more if Russia was involved. You think about it, but you know, they're going to come back, and just like last year, the Four Nations, the players who don't participate, they'll get their time off, but then they'll have, I don't know exactly what the schedule is, but there might be 4 or 5 days worth of practice to bring them back into town, get them back on the ice and moving around a little bit. And then the players that come back from Italy, some will come back sooner than others.
Yeah.
Depending on, who advances to the medal rounds. So you think about it, but every team is going to go through it. And I believe that with the way that this team, like I thought about this last night, watching the game and seeing everybody buy into what the game plan was.
Yeah.
Like I remember in 2004, John Tortorella used to use the phrase, I got to a point, I just opened the door and let them play. He didn't have to talk to him. He didn't have to tell him anything. They knew exactly what they had to do to go out and perform and give themselves a chance to win. I don't know if this team is there yet, but boy, it looked like it last night.
It really did.
The game plan was just like everybody was just all in on everything they needed to do to control that team. And maybe it was the opponent had a part to do with that. But, like I asked the question of Declan Carlisle, how many plays did they snuff out at their defensive blue line and not even allow Colorado to get in? It kind of changed as the game moved on, but you could see everybody buying into that aspect. And, the cycle game and, no cute plays, right? We talked about that in the pregame. No east-west. It's got to be more north-south. And the fact that everybody bought in, it kind of gave me that little bit of vibe.
I couldn't agree more with you from that perspective. And I think that tells me, this goes back to the John Cooper question. He's got his team. His message doesn't really become falling on deaf ears. That's what's impressive, because you're right. For those guys to buy in, your coach has to have a message, and they're buying into the message.
Yeah,
it's pretty impressive.
And you've got a lot of these guys that have been here for a while with him.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And I know, like Chief brings it up a lot. And look, we know the shelf life of an NHL coach is short. Like it's short. Like you're going to see guys. I mean, they're already talking about Sheldon Keefe in New Jersey. Is it time for him to move on? He's been there a year and a half. Right. So the fact that and again, I'll say it 1,000th time, because of the way John Cooper can relate and talk to his players on a personal level, even though it's business, that's the difference to me and why the message doesn't run out, because it's the way it's delivered, the way he connects. And that's a big part, I think, of coaching nowadays is, can you connect with your players? And that's his biggest strength. We can talk X's and O's and everything else, game plans. It's the way he connects with the players, and that's how he's able to get the best out of them. And to me, that's why a message doesn't go stale in this situation.
It's a valid point. It is very valid. At Bolts Radio, if you want to get involved in that conversation, you certainly can. All right, let's get to this question. Local Nomad says, John Cooper coaching 1,000 games, all for one franchise, is something we may never see again in not just the NHL, but in any professional sport ever again. Us Lightning fans are pretty spoiled to have him.
We're spoiled by this franchise in a lot of ways. The success they've had since John Cooper has been here, really since Jeff Vinik bought the team, right? That 2011 team that reached the conference final. I don't know if it won't be reached in another sport. I mean, look at the longevity of some NBA coaches, right? They play an 84-game schedule, and the NHL is about to go to an 84-game schedule. But so it's pretty similar. I mean, you think of guys like Steve Nash and how long he's been at Golden State, and the San Antonio coach who was there for so many years. Like those guys stick around when they have Greg Popovich. Thank you. So it could happen. I don't recall hearing or seeing about 1,000 games coach at the NBA level, but I think some of those guys had to have hit that mark. But the fact that in this case, in the NHL, because we just talked about this, the shelf life is so short, I don't know if we will see this. His first 1,000 games, let alone 1,000 games. It's his first 1,000 games. It's all been with the same franchise. Now, he's got a Hall of Fame roster that he's had, for a good part of his time here with some really, really good players, and that helps. But the fact that he's been here for 12 years on his first job in the NHL, I'm not sure that will be touched again. That's going to be a hard one to reach, because there's only been 4 guys in the history of the game that have done that with one franchise.
Incredible in a lot of ways. Chris says, Zone Time by Gourde Line and Nick Paul was outstanding. It really was. And there isn't a weak link on this team. I think that's the part that we keep coming back to. Everybody up and down that lineup does something.
And even the line last night with Bjorkstrand, Paul, and Dominic James spent a lot of time in the offensive zone. They all did. And it's easier said than done against a team like Colorado for sure. And I'm looking at the 12 forwards that are dressed right now. I don't see, barring injuries, when Jack Finley or Curtis Douglas find their way back in. Right? It's going to be hard if those three guys are going to play that way, and the versatility it gives you. And I know Pat talked about this on the broadcast last night, and I noticed it looking at the ice time. I think everybody played at least 12 minutes last night. That's not normally the case. About that.
Yeah.
I think Gonsalves might have had the lowest at 11 something, but I think basically everybody was around at least 12 minutes in the game. And when you can do that, so we talk about the full buy-in. So everybody's playing well enough to continue to see the ice time. And again, we go back to the coaching staff not being overly concerned if they don't get the right matchup out there that they want, right? If they're caught in icing or something like that, they're not overly concerned about it.
Right.
Because of how well everybody's playing. Yeah, you want the Gourde line against McKinnon, and I think McKinnon had 17 plus minutes of 5-on-5 time. I think Gourde, Girgensson, home were on the ice against them for about 12 minutes total against them. So they were, about 75 to 80% of the game was against them. But that means McKinnon was out there against somebody else. And those guys did their job as well.
It was interesting. I think Brian talked about this on the last call last night about he was talking to Yanni Gourde. Might have been a month ago, maybe a little longer than that. And he was talking about, how do you think your line's playing, and you guys are really doing a good job of defending. He's like, yeah, but we need to create some offense, and they have, just enough to really warrant being out there as much as they are.
Because that's the other thing we don't talk about with these matchups, right? If they're not a line that's going to produce offense. And certainly, to Gourde's point, that's, everybody wants to score goals. But when your first responsibility is defense, you're not going to get 24 minutes because Nathan McKinnon plays 24 minutes, right? You're going to get the D-zone faceoffs against that line and everything else, but you're not going to play a line like that, 22 minutes a game. You can. But you're not going to. So that's where you have to make sure everybody else kind of buys into. So when you're talking about matchups and everything, 12 of the 17 minutes, it's a lot of minutes matched up against one line for sure, 5-on-5 play. But, to Yanni's point, that's why you have to be able to do more than just defend, right? You have to be able to contribute. And that was obviously a huge, huge goal that they scored late in the second period there. And great work by them, again, against the McKinnon line. Makar was the guy that Girgenson's found inside position on and was able to get his stick down to take that pass from Yanni. So it's when they're doing that and keeping that top line off the board, that's like a coach's dream right there.
Chris says Crozier and Destu are waiver exempt currently. Carlisle would be claimed given he has played more than 10 games.
Well, I wouldn't say he would be claimed.
Right.
He would be subject to being claimed because he has to go through. Yeah, I keep forgetting that Crozier remains waiver exempt, which kind of surprises me at this point. But I'm not I know the rules. I don't know them inside and out as well as I should in that aspect. But you're probably not sending Crozier back. Unless you can tell him, look, we need a little time to make something happen here. You could make it happen, but it wouldn't be worthy. It would not be worthy, and it wouldn't deserve. None of those guys deserve to go back.
And if you have somebody on the NHL roster who's not playing, you can manufacture them to do like a conditioning stint, can't you?
You can, and we saw this with Finley earlier this year.
That could be one of the ways you delay the decisions with certain things.
Those guys still count against the roster.
Yeah.
Right? So they're not off the roster.
Right.
They're just on a conditioning stint. So they still count against your roster. They still count against your cap. So that wouldn't alleviate the roster situation. It would just give them playing time. So
Tom says, would love to see a depth scorer added at the deadline. Goodrow want to come home? Now, look, I don't know if he's considered a depth scorer at this point.
Correct.
Is that fair?
It's fair.
Listen, here's where I'm going to give you more of a little bit more substance, because my philosophy. People come to your website, they come to shows because they want to hear an opinion. I think Gonçalves has played better. If you were to tell me they still want to try and find another top 6, I could listen to that. I could. I think that's fair. I think as good as Gonçalves has been, Bjorkstrand, I don't know, has been that top 6 guy at this point yet for them. Not saying he can't. I'm just saying let's just, for me, go a step further. I'm not sure it'd be more depth scoring, because I actually think they have that. I think it would be finding another legitimate top 6 forward. And I think you can get there for the reasons we've talked about the last 2 shows, because you have some assets that are very attractive.
Yep. And again, going back to the face-offs, you need a guy. If it's not going to come from within, you need somebody who can win that key defensive zone draw consistently in tight games. Like you need it. I mean, that's where you miss Glendening, because Glendening, defensive-minded forward, he's really found a niche in the NHL because of that. And you could throw him out, when the face-off dot was in, the right circle, he'd be on a strong side. And, he would, he's a 56, 57, 58% guy historically, especially the last number of years. And, that's to me, if it's a top 6 guy, but then it's a center, most likely a center, right? Like, so there's a lot of things you're kind of, juggling here in terms of what you want to be able to address. I think Julian does do something at the trade deadline. There's no doubt about it. But to me, that's like we talked about it yesterday. What's the one really chink in the armor for the Lightning? And it is faceoffs, because it has burned them a couple of times, even early in the year. So it's been a 42 game problem, right? It's that to me, that's what you need. You need somebody who's going to give you that opportunity in tight games late to help protect leads, to be out on the ice to win that key defensive zone draw. That to me, that would be at the top of my list.
It's fair. All of it is fair game. What we do know is that Julian will do something. If he doesn't do anything, I will be surprised.
And we don't know what it is, and nobody will tell. And Julian will tell none of the insiders, none, including this insider. Before
maybe this show we're connected like that, but maybe not. Tonight, enjoy some Refrom Smooth. I'm kidding, of course. Smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule. Taste why fans are switching. Refrom is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrom by name. Go Bolts. Enjoy responsibly. This one comes from Ranger. There should be an award for our scouting department. Do they have anything organizationally outside of just, you win best record in the league and, you get rewarded for that? I feel like there probably should be.
Not league wide. No. Sports Business Journal or ESPN will come out with their top organizations.
Oh,
right.
Yeah,
There's different criteria for that.
Why don't they do that? Why? I feel like that's low hanging fruit.
Does that categorize into GM of the year? Like, does it get lumped in with that?
It could.
Yeah.
They'll say yes, but we know that's not true.
Yeah. No, it's because I think any GM that has won that award will tell you that they give a lot of the credit to the scouting staff, pro scouts and amateur scouts.
Who do you think it begins and starts with right now with the scouting department
for the Lightning?
Yeah.
Well, Jamie Pusher is assistant GM and in charge of pro scouting.
How long has he been in charge of pro scouting?
It's been a few years, ever since Pat Verbeek left.
Okay.
Right. Once Verbeek left with Yzerman, so that would have been 1920. Pusher's been in charge of pro scouting.
He needs to be rewarded somewhere with some hardware, because that guy. If your job is to oversee all of that, making sure you're getting the guys who can identify talent, good for him. I remember when he was defenseman, tough guy, physical, never was the fastest, but maybe it makes sense. He was able to identify talent, from his playing days.
Yeah. I remember I had him on the show pre-COVID because he was on that Detroit team.
Yeah.
That had that historic year and got bounced in the first round. I think they got beat by San Jose, right? Because there was the correlation because the Lightning in 18-19 had a historic year. They were swept out. So, he had some great perspective on what it was like to come back the next year after that happened. And I think Detroit, I think it was 97. So I think that's the year Detroit went on to win the cup and they won back-to-back cups. So, a little correlation there between Jamie Pusher and the Lightning and what he had in Detroit. Yeah.
Heck of a job.
Yeah.
I mean, that is kudos to him. Christina says, just want to send good thoughts to former Bolt Hayden Fleury, who had a nasty collision with the boards last night. I did not see that. Did you see it?
I didn't see the hit. I know he was taken off the ice on a stretcher. He was hit by Keegan Colasar, the game against Vegas. It wasn't a dirty hit. It was an unfortunate hit. It was well away from the boards, and he just caught Fleury, I guess, in the right way, and he just went sliding across the ice and went face first into the boards. Good news is I think he suffered a broken nose, and he was conscious. He was, there was no issues like that. So it doesn't sound like it's going to be. We always talk about injuries. It doesn't sound as bad as it looked, right? I think he's going to be okay. I don't know how much time he's going to miss, but the good news is it's not like severe, and that's so good. Kudos to send some thoughts to Hayden Fleury as well.
For sure.
Great guy.
Yeah. Michelle says, when do we start calling the top of the point Ratty's office? You got to have some credit. You got to have a little bit more cachet, right? I mean, come on.
Yes. Yes. Look, for the time being, there's only one office on the ice, and it still belongs to 91, even though he's not here anymore, right? It's still Stammer's office over there.
Ranger 5253 says, anyone know why Lundmark was called up? Is Chernak banged up from that awkward fall last night?
Well, Lundmark was called up yesterday before the game, so there's no between what happened to Chernak last night and Lundmark being called up. He was called up just to be that extra defenseman in case they needed. I thought that they were going to save the cap space for a few days because you don't play again until Saturday. Right. But obviously they sent Groshev back and called Lundmark back up. So there's no correlation, but teams will typically want to carry that extra defenseman just in case somebody gets hurt, right? Just in case, there could easily be a situation where, maybe somebody wasn't 100% and they weren't sure, that we'll never know about. And that could have been the case, but they usually to have that extra defenseman.
Is that also rewarding a guy, play pretty well down there? You get called up and you might not play, but be around the pros, right? Paycheck,
a couple days of NHL
not bad,
salary.
Right?
It can be a significant difference between NHL and AHL pay. Those guys will take it.
Man, did you see the report that the East Coast Hockey League was on a strike? I think they came back, but days. There was and there's been talk about travel and pay and things like that. I never understood, because that was the issue a little bit with Major League Baseball and the minor leagues, of course. I mean, I think these entities probably should be helping out those lower leagues. You make so much money. I think you want as many professionals playing as possible, even at the East Coast League, and within reason, make it affordable for those guys to want to pursue it.
And if you've seen the salaries of the ECHL players, it's not much.
No, it's really it's like entry level money coming out of college.
And we
not
know
even
to be a pro athlete, it's a 12-month-a-year job.
Yes.
Right? It's not just in season. You've got to keep yourself in shape and work out and get stronger and everything else. It's a 12-month-a-year job, and those guys don't make a lot under the circumstances. You can sell them a dream, but you got to pay them too.
You do. I mean, you're not saying pay them $1 million, but pay them a living wage.
Yeah.
Last question, Steve says, Stahoviak expectingly named to Team Germany. He's had a good season thus far in Syracuse. When is he going to get an opportunity to show his abilities with the Bolts? Gonsalves and Bjorkstrand haven't been the top 6 pieces the team hoped for.
Yeah, I thought maybe we'd have seen him by now, based off of his preseason and the way he looked and, what he's been able to do in Europe, for the past couple of years. Obviously, congratulations on being an Olympian.
That's pretty cool.
he's Polish, but he lives in Germany and he's played in Germany the last number of years. I mean, that's a good question. I don't know why he hasn't had the chance yet. We've talked about the number of opportunities that they continue to give Gage Gonsalves, and based off of last year, you want to try and see if you can recapture that Gage Gonsalves from the second half of last year. Certainly Bjorkstrand has not lived up to the expectations that we had of him being a multi 20 goal scorer in this league. And now he's playing basically fourth line minutes. But you right now you have 2 extra forwards on your roster as it is, right? In Finley and Douglas. Both of those guys are subject to waivers if you want to send them down. And you want to carry that 7th defenseman. So, and the injuries haven't hit the forward group the way it has the defensive group, right? Chernak and Littleberg and Hedman and McDonough. I mean, those guys have missed significant time on the back end. So that's why we've seen so many young defensemen called up and given an opportunity. But we'll see. There's still a long way to go. There's a lot of runway left in the season. I could easily see, Stachowiak getting an opportunity at some point, but there is rosters that we know Sabrin and the reasons he's been called up, but he's played well in the times that he has been called up, beyond just being on the ice against the Florida Panthers. So I don't know. I think at some point Stachowiak is going to get his opportunity to play. Just because, you bring him over, just like at Valtteri Merila a couple years ago,
Sure.
You bring him over, you want to see if he can play at the NHL level. So I think at some point he's going to get that chance.
This was a lot of fun. Once again, the hour flies by.
Yeah.
Tremendous job filling in for Mish, and of course all of the broadcasts this year. We'll do it again. When's the next game? Saturday, right? On the road.
Saturday. Yeah.
Wow. A few days off.
5-game road trip. Yeah.
5-game road trip for sure. And
They'll take it. 1 game in 6 days. They'll take it.
No doubt. So will we.
Yes.
People can get you at lightninginsider.com.
Yep. That's a website. 2 ways to sign up. Yearly plan, monthly plan. Again, costs you less than a Starbucks, per month to sign up. So support local media. That's all I can say.
Support it, baby. Support it. We appreciate it. Thank you, buddy. And we'll do it again soon. I'll see you at the rink soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Right. There he goes. Erik Erlendsson with us there. Thanks to Steve Ersnick, Jared Johnston, and you for listening. I am Greg Linnelli. You've been listening to Power Lunch on Lightning Radio.